Welcome to JobGhost, the podcast where we talk all things ghosting in the hiring process. I'm your host, Meg Giuliano, and today we have an awesome guest joining us to share their story. She's the founder of Corporate Christie and is known for creating hilarious, HR-relatable, skit-style videos that she shares across TikTok, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Christie Hoffman, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Megan.
Thank you for being here. Tell me a little bit more about Corporate Christie and what you've been up to lately.
Corporate Christie is a personal brand I put together to make sense of what the heck my corporate career was. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. And I know that's true because when I make fun of a day in the life of work, which expanded to a day in the life of your toxic family and a day in the life of your toxic friendships, my silly videos were going viral for all the weirdest reasons. So I just kept leaning into what was just kind of like a fun way for me to make sense of how hard I worked and what a high performer I was during my career. And I loved that part of me. I'm so proud of that part of me. But I had enough of corporate and I quit corporate to start a couple other projects to help organizations take better care of their employees. I couldn't do it anymore. And I see so clearly what those reasons were that were contributing to my burnout and just feeling like I was working so hard and not making progress. And these companies were just turning and burning talent and with family situations and friendships. So my personal brand has been a place of healing for me and a place to have some fun. And luckily has also helped people heal and see themselves in some of my content. So I'm really proud of myself that I took the plunge and posted some videos with me wearing a wig. Changed my letter.
Yeah, that's where it starts. If you guys aren't currently following Christie, you should. She posts these funny skit-style videos where she puts on different wigs and pretends to be different people, right?
Yep. I've got a whole suitcase that travels with me. People are like, where are you going? I'm like, nowhere. I could hear this is me and all my personalities. I've got your mom. I've got a mother character, a father character, a CEO, a head of HR, a VP of marketing and sales, and disengaged employees. And they're all like actually versions of me. I could elements of me and all these silly people that I play. I couldn't just start doing that. You know, I think when you're super creative, and this was part of my struggle in corporate, ideas just come to certain people. Thank God for the logical people in accounting who do the spreadsheets and are like 1 + 1 = 2. But some people are like 1 + 1 is like a lavender color lilac, you know, and it's just a different way of thinking and can sometimes make you feel like there's something wrong with you. Ever since I was a kid, you know, maybe this is neurodivergence. School, I was just always daydreaming. I've always had funny ideas in my head. I wish I could act on every skit that came to my mind. I've only tapped into 0.1% of anything I've ever thought of because they're a lot of work. So for me, it's like a way of communicating that comes very naturally.
Yeah, I love that. It almost seems like it must be like how writers feel like it's like cathartic for you, right?
Yes. And honestly, when I have a crazy idea and I act it out and I record it and I edit it, there's moments where I'm like, what am I doing? But when it goes viral, I'm like, that's what I was doing. It was some kind of message that needed to get out there. I don't know. I'm sometimes a little hippie witch. So sometimes I believe I get sent messages that need to be sent to the collective, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Don't you ever find too that the ones that you don't feel like are going to perform are the ones that end up performing the best for some reason?
And this is important for anyone to hear. If anyone wants to dabble in TikTok or any kind of content creation and you're worried about how it's going to be perceived or who's going to see you, just do it, but like let go. Block everyone you think you care about their opinion. And the videos that I've worked the least hardest on, those are the ones that take off. I almost didn't post almost all of my viral videos because I was like, I didn't hit the mark. So like you gotta just put it out there.
Yeah, you just gotta go for it. That's great advice. I want to get into ghosting, but first I want to ask you about, you have a masterclass coming up, right?
I do, yes. So my time spent making sense of my disengaged career has been channeled very effectively into the HR leaders of the world. So anyone who works in talent management, people ops, HR, I have such a soft place in my heart for them because I did persona research on them as a product marketer. When I worked in tech and I was burned out, I was speaking to all of our customers and I realized everyone thinks HR is not their friend and, you know, these companies traumatize us, but most HR leaders are not equipped. They are not taught through their certifications how to speak fluent revenue, how to be influential to executives and be like, yo, bro, like people problems are revenue problems because the people drive the revenue, like duh, but they're not taught or equipped to take their superpower of empathy to the leadership team and use it to hit business KPIs. So I teach HR leaders all over the world. They're having huge success with this. It's so like gratifying for me to see them win because HR leaders are often underlooked and under-resourced, and I teach them how to make that stop.
Yeah, that's great. If you're in HR and recruiters can jump into that.
All of it, HR, talent management. If you touch the function of HR, which is so big, you will get value from my content 100%.
So yeah, you guys should definitely take a look at Christie's masterclass. When did you say that's coming up?
I soft launched it. It's live right now. If you go to corporatechristie.com and click on masterclass, I'm like 2 modules down and like 3 to go. And we are adding stuff quickly. But there's things in there like how to run a better all hands, how to send a survey your employees actually take, and what to do when you get such a dumpster fire of negative feedback, and how to not panic and how to act on that feedback in the right order. It's like a whole mindset shift that I think will not just transform their career, it will help them see themselves differently as a human. It'll serve them in their personal life too, give them some confidence.
Amazing. So I wonder, when hiring managers are moving slow in the process, you mentioned that everything's sort of on HR's shoulders. Do you think that it gives HR or the recruiter a bad look to the candidate?
My God, yes. I've spoken so because I know so much in the HR world, I see what's happening to candidates and how upset and frustrated they are. And I have a story about that. But now that I've seen behind the curtain, I see how embarrassed recruiters are, how exhausted and frustrated they are because they're not seen as a revenue driver. They're just like, get people in the door. So they're understaffed. And they're given this clunky technology called an applicant tracking system. And it's usually like so full of weird filters, and it's clunky to use, and it filters out great candidates, and it's boring to use. And they're talking to so many people a day. Those teams need to be bigger. And that's a big contributing part of why the candidate experience is such a mess right now, because executives have such a lack mentality. They don't want to invest in the earliest driver of engagement for businesses is like, what's the first impression of the company? Well, even if they hire you and it was a terrible experience, you're starting off on a bad foot. But definitely if they ghost you, that's terrible for your employer brand. And it's so avoidable. And all of this costs businesses money in the long run. But I see both sides of it, you know?
Yeah. What's the other side, you think?
I see the candidate side. Well, there's 3 sides. There's the candidate side, which is traumatic. I see what is wrong with me. Why aren't they talking to me? I thought I gave a great first impression. We've done 7 interviews. What did I do? I see, and what they don't see is a recruiter who has a jam-packed calendar, unclear job requirements, and hiring managers who are not paying attention and they're not giving feedback. One person is hiring for like many different roles. So you're hiring for an engineer, and then you're hiring for a marketer, and then you're hiring for a salesperson. And a recruiter's not done those roles. So we're relying on them to like understand what makes a good hire for all of those things, and very like they're not given structure or a clear idea of what kind of person to hire. And then the executive side is the third side, and they're just like, go faster, do more with less. Why don't you, get the right people, get anybody in the door so that we can drive the business forward and make money. But if you make the wrong hire, or if, and a bad experience and the employer brand tanks, the right people aren't going to want to work for your organization. So it's like a toxic family. Like, go, 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 be in all these activities, like the toxic parent that pushed you in the 90s. I had one of those. So it's all systemic. It's all what I love to teach is like foolish in business on every level.
Yeah, it's like this hamster wheel that we're on, where it sort of feels like no one knows how to get off of it. And I'm hearing what you're saying too, as far as HR professionals and recruiters. They feel badly that they're ghosting people, and many of them know that they're ghosting people. I've been surprised about the amount of messages I've had fall into my inbox just saying like, I don't even know how to keep up with all of these messages. Like, what is JobGhost? I'd like to try it because I want to be able to give candidates feedback. I have 25 recs on my plate, and I don't know how to keep up with all of it.
I love what you guys are solving for, because I've had many conversations with recruiters who all kinds of HR leaders will reach out to me when they see my content because it's so silly, but it's so true. I've had people, perfect strangers, in the first 10 minutes, of them reaching out on LinkedIn, can I talk to you? I'm always like, of course. When can you talk? Tears. I'm miserable. I feel like I'm terrible at my job. I feel like I'm letting everyone down. I'm letting myself down. I'm exhausted. What's wrong with me? It is traumatic for the candidate. I just want everyone to know who's been through a ghosting experience, you didn't deserve it, but also you should see what that person on the other side is going through too. And they didn't mean to do it to you. It's the system that they've been placed in, why they're failing you so hard. And they know they're failing you and they feel terrible. It doesn't make it okay, but maybe that heals any imposter syndrome of someone listening of like, because you think you don't have visibility as the candidate into like, where are they? What's going on? What did I do? What did I do wrong? And you spin in these negative thought loops. And I tell this to my kids too. Nothing anyone ever does is because of you. It's because of them. It's a reflection of the recruiter's resources and the situation they've been put in by a money-hungry CEO who's very short-sighted and revenue-focused. And
does that apply to a lot in life too, right? Even outside of hiring. Have you ever seen it where a candidate is having a negative interview experience, maybe at one of the companies you've been a part of in the past, and maybe the hiring manager is moving very slow, tough to get feedback, and everybody really likes the candidate though, and you end up making them an offer, and maybe they're reluctant to accept, or they end up declining the offer because of the process?
Yes, I've seen that. And I've also seen, finally when the hire is made, there's the team, the coworkers on the team have to do a lot of pepping up of the person to be like, it wasn't you, it's our manager, they're toxic, they're a micromanager, or they're avoidance. Managers cause 70% of disengagement on teams. It's not so much the leadership team themselves, it's the daily interactions with the manager. So when companies start candidates off on such a shaky foot, the leaders, the teammates have to put in more time to get the person to come out of their shell and start to be productive and feel welcomed onto the team. But what happens is they start trauma bonding over how bad the manager is. And then that is its own little toxic cycle that can spin out of control. So you never want employees bonding over a bad onboarding or recruiting experience, but it's very common. Onboarding.
What's more about that?
My gosh, I was the queen of this. So I joke with my HR audience, I used to be your worst nightmare. I teach HR leaders how to drive employee engagement, which is get employees to care about their work and give their best effort. But I was often the one on teams saying, there's nothing wrong with you. This company's a mess. Because I loved people, but I didn't get how understaffed HR was. I was often the manager or the leader or the coworker who was like, that performance review was BS. That feedback was not timely. You're great at what you do. It was like I was the social justice warrior trying to pep up the team and keep everyone motivated in systems that were not set up for employees to succeed in daily employee life. We weren't being sent surveys. We weren't being asked to optimize the business. And it's really silly because employees have a lot of customer insights. We have a lot of bottlenecks on teams, and everyone knows tool bloat. If you've ever worked in tech or had to use software, IT tools don't talk nicely. It takes like 17 steps to log a new deal in Salesforce. And businesses that don't act on employee feedback to fix that stuff, it starts to make us crazy. We don't want to take 17 deals to log a new deal in Salesforce. Let's make it easier to do our best work. Oftentimes, I was the one just like helping people see that there's nothing wrong with them, because there wasn't. It was the way we were being asked to work. But that was causing people to, I didn't mean it this way, but like that was a form of leadership that was good for my immediate team because they stayed motivated to work with me. Like, we'll fix this as soon as we can. I'll do everything I can, but it's not you, it's this. But that causes everyone to stop believing in the company because we're just trying to survive it. Disengagement is a trauma response to having so many barriers to being able to do your job well and a lack of clarity and constant fire drills. It's all avoidable. Shameless plug for my masterclass. I talk about all of this because I lived it.
Yeah. No, I think many people can relate to what you're saying. Is there some sort of trauma response that hiring managers are experiencing? Yeah.
A lot of, I would say the most common, the trauma responses are freeze, fight, fawn, fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So a lot of recruiters get stuck in flight, which is hyper productivity, just go, 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 and then into freeze.
Yeah.
They're getting LinkedIn messages from the people they interviewed, and now the role's like been put on hold, and they don't want to respond to the person saying, sorry, the role's on hold, because it's not their fault. It wasn't their decision, and they don't want to fail them. So with recruiters specifically, it's hyperproductivity of flight straight into freeze, which is like do nothing and be avoided because they're embarrassed. And so if it's their fault, I know it's so easy to pin it on the recruiter. It's the hiring manager and the executive team that are causing these breakdowns, you know?
Internal recruiters. Well, I guess agency recruiters too, right? Because they're calling it hiring managers.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, disengagement. Anyone who's ever like been a high performer and then suddenly you feel like you're getting the Sunday scaries, or you feel like you don't want to go to the meeting because it's repetitive and nothing gets done in the Monday huddle. And you're like, oh my God, I don't even want to open my computer. You're having a trauma response to the fact that working at this company is not fulfilling. It doesn't have to be perfect, but like nothing's moving forward in a meaningful way. Things are done kind of haphazardly and sloppy. Things are unclear and people are toxic. And that's your body trying to protect you. But you should always look at the interview process that's messy and like touch and go. I know everyone's desperate for work right now. I know it's a terrible job market at the time of recording this, but it's just like a relationship. If someone's hot and cold when you're dating, would you want to jump in and get married and have kids with them? It's not exactly the same thing, but there are indicators and red flags that if the recruiting process was terrible, you can bet that it's going to be an awful onboarding. It's going to be a maze of like confusing, go read the website and look at the case studies and we'll just throw you into the mix and figure it out. That sucks. People hate that. I've been through that. And then you'll be guaranteed that daily life on the team is messy and 100% guaranteed the business will not hit its revenue goals long term. And you're just going to be in a state of turmoil all the time. The company kind of told you who they were in the beginning, but like I've had to take jobs like that in the past because I needed money. So I get it, but like always pay attention. The recruiting process is usually an indicator of how they treat their employees. And some companies have really dialed this in, and there are good companies out there that it is real. It's rare, but be cautious of accepting a job that made you feel like garbage through the process.
Yeah, that's great advice. I always say it's like the mini sneak peek preview. And you have to remember too that you're also interviewing them to see if it's a job and if it's a job that you want to take and if it's somebody that you want to work for.
Yeah.
Can't forget that.
100%.
Yeah. I saw a post recently that you made, and you were basically giving people in HR tips on how they could use stats to I guess, influence leaders on tools and things that they may need to make their job easier. Is there something you think they could be doing along those lines to prevent ghosting?
Let's see. Yeah. Any kind of, let's thinking you can do of negatives. What are the negative? I've been out of corporate for so long. Where do people go? Can you leave a review on Glassdoor for an interview? Is that still a thing?
Yeah.
So I teach HR leaders this a lot. Take negative feedback of any kind and see it as a good thing. You take a screenshot, you put it in a slide deck, you get social proof that something's wrong. Look, we're getting these negative reviews online. You can take numbers like the amount of applicants that applied and then like the amount of interviews you had, and then if it even ended up in a hire or not, and then measure someone's time to productivity when you do hire someone. If those numbers are just like a very aggressive downward trend, you take that to the leadership team with screenshots of what people are saying to the company, and you go, it is time to scale our team. This is bad for business. Turnover costs 1.5 times someone's salary. Disengagement costs, I have all these stats in my masterclass that you have to give executives numbers. They don't care about your feelings. They don't care about you're sad, you're burned out, this is hard, boo-hoo. You have to paint their biggest fear, which is this is going to cause the business to fail if this continues. Mm. So if you hired me to do my job well, my job then here is to tell you that this has to stop. I think capturing any social proof that's qualitative in nature, that's not necessarily a number, but it's like, look what people are saying, look the words people are using to describe our brand, and then pair that with quantitative data, like the amount of applicants and the amount of interviews had, and then the amount of people that even move forward on top of time to productivity, then you can really get it, like pull your turnover rates. An organization as a whole, it's expensive to lose talent, even if it was someone who was disengaged. It really affects productivity and how your customers are treated. So when you can paint an executive's greatest fear of failure in their language of money, then I love the messages I get where people are like, I used your script to explain this to an executive and I actually got through to them. And it takes practice because you shouldn't have to speak money terms to get someone to care about people, but that's how executives are wired.
Oh, that's so awesome. Yeah. And I don't know the answer to this, but I wonder if, there's been more and more stats coming out on job seekers who have had a bad experience with the company may not buy from that company anymore because we can't forget, right? Job seekers are also consumers. So I do wonder, I'm not sure if they're out there now, but if at some point we'll start to see even in the review section for products and services, some job seeker experiences.
I hope so. And I saw a TikTok video the other day from July. This woman was saying in January, Canada has legal fees for job ghosting. And I don't know if that's still carrying through. I need to look into that. But I think that's such a great indicator, for recruiters to be able to say, this woman can't keep up with this workload. Look, we're going to have legal fees now if we don't at least follow up with these people in 48 hours, I think it is, there's this really great law that's been passed that makes ghosting illegal.
Yeah.
Thank God. And if it can happen in Canada, then that's an indicator it could happen in America. And we can only hope that it will.
Yeah, that one keeps coming up. It's very interesting. We've been looking at that here too. I think it's like 45 days. If there's no response, the company can be fined hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Good. And recruiters should be happy about that, not scared. That doesn't mean you're going to be bad at your job. That's finally a way for you to have something to use as leverage to say, this is a completely unrealistic volume of applicants are expecting me to go through. We can't just post jobs and then remove them. And, it's going to cause executives to have better behavior. And that's always a good thing.
I like how you encourage people to use data too. Do you think HR professionals do that naturally, or do they need to be reminded?
They need to be reminded, and this is what I think is so disgusting about HR certifications as a whole. They're not taught how to do this well. HR certifications teach a bunch of buzzwords about compliance, but they don't teach influence with numbers and business metrics. So a lot of HR people will come to me and say, what should I be measuring? And there's metrics. If you're not used to it, it's good to just start slow and track your turnover rate first. How many people have you hired this year and how many people left? And over time, adding more and more metrics that make sense for your business. I have a whole cheat sheet in my community. It's dependent on the organization. And so if you're from surveys, specifically when employees say, I'm not engaged, that's not a failure. That's an employee still being transparent enough to tell you, like, I believe in this company, but I'm not doing okay. So here's what it would take for me to be engaged so I can drive the company more revenue. And everybody drives revenue, even the person who answers your phones at the front desk. Everyone's a revenue driver in some way, shape, or form, not just sales or marketing. So surveys are a great, like ENPS is an employee net promoter score. That's like, we do it for customers, customer satisfaction. Employee net promoter score is HR's owned metric that they send a quarterly survey that never changes. When you get that survey that's like, would you recommend this company to friends and family? And everyone's like, no. So if you're but that's not a failure. That's a really important benchmark metric because the question never changes to tell a CEO, hey, the revenue drivers, remember, you don't drive the revenue, ma'am or sir executive, the people drive the revenue. They're saying that they barely want to work here. So we need to have a more ongoing feedback loop with them to figure out what's up. And it's not for pizza parties and like silly hat day and cat day. It's for like training the managers and making sure everyone has clear expectations and goals that are achievable and enough resources. And when you invest in the business against exactly what your employees say they need, you drive revenue every time. It's proven with research through Gallup. So if you're in HR listening, track your turnover rate and then start sending ENPS if any executive tries to block you from sending surveys, because a lot of executives are avoidant and they don't want to know the truth. So if you're script that explains to them, why it's bad for business to not let you do your job, which is to take great care of and enable the revenue drivers. That's your job. So if you're actually revenue driver number one, that's the big mindset shift that I teach. They're taught that they're a cost center and that they're a necessary evil. And it's kind of like, so if you're like the cycle breaker child, so you're like the invisible child of the family where they're like, you're a liar and it's because you tell the truth and like you're just misunderstood all the time and you're made to feel bad for the role that you play. But if you work in HR, your job is to enable the employees. And that is business critical mission number one. And if you're understaffed and underwater, you can't do that well. And we got to change that for you. Join my mastermind.
Wow. Yeah, I have someone in my life I'm thinking right now that's going to really enjoy this episode and all the tips that you've provided.
Yeah.
Is there
my ghosting story?
Please tell us. We have to cover that.
It's just like a quick one in that I did 12 interviews in my 20s, 12 interviews for a company where they kept asking me to come back. HR's back and come back and we're not sure. And then they asked me to do a project and it was product marketing. So they asked me to redo their whole website as a project, which I was dumb enough to be like, okay, like unpaid, worked so hard on it. They never called me back. And then a month after I like gave up but was just peeking at their website because I wanted to work at this company, they put my value prop on the website. They took a lot of my feedback and how I would rearrange things and they took my project and they used it and I'll never forget it. Be very cautious, people, when you do projects. That's like so scummy.
Is that a company that you would ever buy from or recommend to a friend?
Never, ever. And I remember writing a note to the CEO on LinkedIn and showing him my project and saying, I don't want to work here anymore, but like, did you know that this happened? And he never responded. But you know what? Love it. And tell people who are awful that they're awful because they have to want to change and even care in the first place. So like, it was a good lesson. I was being shown in the interview process what kind of company it was, and I wasn't paying attention. I just was like pushing through and really wanted to work there. So I learned a good lesson to never go through 12 interviews. I wasn't even an executive yet. I was going to be like a manager of product marketing, a mid-tier, like, one of those jobs early in our careers. And I was so devastated, and I took it personally for a long time, but love it. I run around in wigs on TikTok. I'm okay.
Hey, yeah, you might not be here today if you didn't have that experience or you get to enjoy your videos.
Exactly. My career has been such a great place of inspiration. For a long time, I felt lost. I think this is good advice for people too. Love it. My career, I was just like stuck. I was like, what is all this for? Where is this going? What's the plot line? Like every company I join is its own mixed bag of chaos. Like, when does this end? What is this all for? And now I can see so clearly that it was like a training ground for me to build this groundbreaking masterclass for very underserved HR leaders. And I now speak on stages and get to come on shows like yours and make my own content. And I wrote a book. It's more about family dynamics, but like all of it led me somewhere that makes a lot of sense now. So if you're feeling lost, if you just keep showing up, like get out of toxic situations when you can, but just show up. So if you're being molded and shaped for something, you're being prepared for something. It's not for nothing, but don't repeat patterns. Like I would jump the second something got unrealistic, I was kind of like the job hopper. And so if you're the avoidant Scorpio in me of like, get away from me, don't hurt me. But as long as you're not repeating patterns and working for the same kinds of businesses and you're learning, like you're going somewhere. So if you're
such good advice, I could talk to you for so long. I can relate to that myself, except for I think I was the opposite for a long time, both in my career and experiences outside of it. I would stay in situations for too long and not listen to those signs. So I think I've gotten sort of a hold of that over the years, but it's funny too, as you look back, it's like all of those things happen for a reason. Yeah. I just can't see it in the moment, but looking back, it all makes sense.
Yeah. We learn by doing. If you're repeating patterns, it's okay. Pay attention. So if you're with wisdom too, like comes like with age, you get more like fed up. I don't know how old you are. You don't have to say on here. I'll say I'm 37 and divorced. So like I was not as equipped in my 20s. I was a people pleaser, high performer. So if you just wanted to be told good job, and that made me the perfect victim for burnout and managers who would take advantage. So like it comes with age, and healing is the most important thing. Healing and psychology. Go to therapy, learn about yourself, learn about your childhood wounds, and figure out why you recreate certain situations from childhood, and start saying no. Start saying no as early as you feel comfortable. So if you're,
As such, and I'm 33, by the way. That's such,
so you're in the millennial bucket.
yeah, totally. Yeah. And everyone always told me, they were like, oh, when you get to your 30s, like things are going to start to make more sense. And I was like, yeah, whatever. And I was actually really afraid to turn 30. And then they were right. Yeah, I think
Way better over here.
I think it's way better.
And I'm excited for my 40s too. I think as women, any women listening, age is a privilege. And like, oh my God, the divine feminine is coming back. People are starting to remember women have a lot of wisdom and age is not a bad thing. Women are divinely protected and like intuitive in lots of beautiful ways. So like always trust your intuition. It's very smart. So if you're
Such great advice. But I like to wrap up these conversations by asking, what is one thing you think HR professionals could start doing to help prevent ghosting?
Good question. I think seeing yourself as a revenue driver. So if you're kind of like stepping into your higher self, that may feel weird. You're like, I'm not a salesperson. I'm not on the marketing team. I don't drive pipeline. I'm not a revenue driver. Yes, you are. So when ghosting is happening because you're overwhelmed with the volume, you need to start to imagine yourself. If you're not ready, just imagine it, because we got to think who we're going to be sometimes and pretend and feel who we could be before we actually can step into it and do it one day. But imagine yourself walking up to a CEO and saying, why do you hate revenue? You hate money. So if you're forced, they would be like, what are you talking about? Well, we are understaffed. We are under-resourced. We need to invest in more tools. This is not good for business. So if you see yourself in this mindset shift that you are business critical, you are not a necessary evil just to get people in through the door. You have a very critical role in the organization of shaping the early impressions of your business through the candidate experience. And if you're not getting what you need, whether it's clear expectations or active hiring managers or a CEO who's like pushing too hard and asking you to fill too many recs and then pulling them away, at what point do you step into your higher self and you say, I am revenue driver number one. I work in HR. This is bad for business. So I'm going to self-advocate and say, we need more people, or this has to stop, or you need to figure out your strategy before you ask me to act on this and hurt people on the outside. This is not good for us.
Such good advice. Seems like a lot of it has to do with mindset, right?
Yeah, it's self-love. Anyone in HR, I think, is used to as a child being you were parentified. You were asked to do too much at too young of an age, so you're used to being helpful without being told thank you. That's how we made our childhood. A lot of HR people were one of 10 children or just expected to grow up way too fast. HR is a very thankless job. So the sooner you step into your wisdom of like, you are business critical and you got to believe it yourself first before you can get people to see you that way. HR is a meditation in my masterclass that would do this for you. It's the first step in stepping into your HR is your most confident self, is that you drive revenue for the business and you got to believe it.
This has been awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Tell everybody where they can find you on social and remind them of when your masterclass, or you said it's earned, right?
Right. I'm pre-selling it right now because it's almost done. So you can get in early. It's $199, but that's way less than your HR certifications that are like thousands of dollars and they teach you nothing. But you can find me on LinkedIn. I was Corporate Christie. That's like my fun persona nickname. She's my higher self that keeps me safe. But if you search me on LinkedIn, Corporate Christie, nobody could find me for some reason. So I'm Christie Hoffman on LinkedIn, but you can go to corporatechristie.com, CHRISTIE, and I have all kinds of free resources. And you can find my masterclass and my podcast. And I even have the latest thing I built is an executive behavior decoder. So you can figure out your crappy boss's trauma and yours and figure out how you're misunderstanding each other and how to have better conversations with them. So there's lots of free stuff on my website that would help all kinds of people.
And you're on TikTok and Instagram too. Did you cover that?
So Instagram's weird. Instagram, I'm not growing and I'm fine with it. I don't care. But TikTok, that's where it's at. So corporate.christie is my specifically HR account. But if you're going through divorce or toxic family dynamics or your friendships are failing, you're probably having some kind of adorable spiritual awakening. So my Christie Heals account, not like your heels on your feet, healing, Christie Heals is my account where I talk about what's happened to me and what I've learned about not being manipulated. And that could be beneficial for people too.
Well, everybody go give her a follow. Thanks for coming on. And thanks for tuning into JobGhost, the podcast. If you like this episode, please give us a like and review and subscribe to our channels on YouTube and Spotify. Don't forget to get on our waitlist at jobghost.ai and follow us on social at jobghost.ai on Instagram and JobGhost on LinkedIn. And remember, say no to ghosting.
Love it. Love it.